going to get going. It is time to start the Senate Education Committee, and what a beautiful day today. Literally, not figuratively. Not only do we have wonderful sunny, unseasonably warm weather, but we had our Kansas music educators here today with their students, and I don't think anyone in the Capitol didn't hear just the beautiful music. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to get started, and we're going to have Mark Guard come and speak to us. You are the president of the Kansas Music Educators Association. We're happy to have you here today.
Okay, thank you. We do appreciate your time. We do thank you for allowing us to speak today. I will be introducing some of the other members. They'll be coming up and giving just a little portion of our presentation today. You should have a PDF from Kelly Nedler. I think he sent information on KMEA. If not, then I can maybe make sure you get that. But I am Mark Guard. I do 7 through 12 vocal music down in Coffeyville, Kansas. Been there for a while, but that's what I do. I'm the KMEA president. Just a little bit about KMEA. We serve approximately 2,000 music educators in Kansas and their music students. KMEA is the 10th largest active members in the nation. We're the 10th largest organization as far as our national organization, and our collegiate chapter is the 6th largest in the United States. This is our 88th anniversary as far as being an organization. Let's see, our national organization is called NAFME. That's the National Association of Music Education, and others might be mentioning about that organization as well, but that's our national organization. Our mission is, as far as Kansas Music Educators Association, is to support music educators by fostering leadership, providing professional development, and promoting the advocacy of music learning in schools and communities. We are a member of the Elementary Secondary Education Act Advisory Council, working with the Kansas State Department of Education in developing the Kansas Consolidated State Plan for Every Student Succeeds Act. So that's just a few things that we are doing. We have a member that I'm going to introduce you to. She's going to be also going to talk to the House Education Committee, so I'm going to let her go next. This is actually Miss Kansas, Taylor Clark.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Taylor, like Mark said. I am a senior in music education at Kansas State, but I graduated from St. John High School back in 2018, a smaller 1A school in South Central Kansas, and I'll tell you why I want to be a music teacher. Growing up, I was always in piano lessons, and my big brother was my idol. I just really looked up to him, and he was in piano lessons, and then one day, he decided to buy himself an electric guitar. And he wanted to start a rock and roll band. And he really schemed with my grandma Ruth. She was a 50-year educator as well. And he said, you know, Taylor wants a drum set for her birthday, which I had never said in my life. I thought, you know, I'm going to play trumpet or flute, something normal for a girl when I get into the high school band and just be in high school band and then go on with my life. But that drum set showed up to my door when I was 8 years old for my birthday, and I've been playing it ever since. I truly fell in love with it. And my brother sold his guitar, but I'm still playing drums. And every day on the road as Miss Kansas, I take that same drum set with me to our schools across Kansas. And typically I speak to between 1 to 4 schools a day. I'm in the classrooms, I'm at school assemblies, and I'm meeting with youth from across our great state and also across our nation. And I'm spreading the message of my own personal platform. It's called Sound for Common Ground Music Connects. So I also take 5-gallon buckets with me and drumsticks, and I make music with the kiddos, and we really have a great time. It's a bit of an icebreaker. And then we talk about any difficult questions that they're facing in their life, whether that's food insecurity or their identity, whatever it might be, and we talk about how music can help with that. Because for me, I had a little bit of a struggle with that as well growing up. I was scared to tell others that I wanted to be a music teacher, because I said I wanted to be an engineer like my brother. It was a successful career. It was very lucrative. But deep down, you know, I was from a family of 4th-generation educators. And I said, you know, I play these drums, and they're loud, and I can't cover that up. And just like that, I needed my own voice to be loud and stand up for myself and who I am as a young woman. And so my drums and music class really helped me to share with others who I am, and that is a music teacher. So that's really my mission this year, is to share that message with our Kansas students and let them know that it's okay to be themselves. And hopefully they can find that through music. And I think that's one thing I've really found in all of my school visits across our state and our nation, is that, we all need music to help us out, whether it's with confidence, finding your true self, or having a home in the music classroom, because we know that so many of our Kansas students, whether it's from rural or urban districts, are struggling at home, and music provides that home for them. And that teacher is their support system. And that's what I'm very, very excited to do pretty soon, starting in 2023 as a band and choir teacher. So thank you all for having me today. It's been a joy speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Taylor. So before you leave, we just have to let the committee, because you're going to be ushered to the next committee. Let the committee have an opportunity to ask you a question or make a comment. Who wants to start? Go ahead, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for being here and what you do for the state. When do you compete in the Miss USA, or what's your next step?
Yeah, so I won the title back in July, and typically we have it every year in June, so mark your calendars, June 10th. Come on down to Pratt, Kansas. But I compete in the Miss America organization, actually, and we are the scholarship and service organization, and we are the largest provider of scholarships to young women in the world. And personally, I've earned over $20,000 in cash scholarships towards my education, and I've worked to secure 2 full rides for our next title holder, so I'm very excited about that. But I competed at the 100th anniversary of Miss America back in December. And I just got back from Alaska at Miss America's homecoming, because she's from Alaska this year.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Yes. Senator Sykes.
And thank you for being here, Taylor. I just say congratulations to you. I have helped many Miss Americas prep for their speech contest, and one of my neighbors actually does that. She's Miss Johnson County. But I also want to say thank you for being a voice to our students, that, to be proud of whatever drum it is that you pound, and to be proud of who you are and comfortable in your own skin. So thank you for doing that for our students.
Committee other members. Well, being the mom of a drummer also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got that drum set for Christmas, and let me tell you, it was a loud Christmas, but our daughter Gwendolyn continued all the way through, was in the youth symphony. Though when she would go and perform for elementary school kids, do you do the baby powder on the snare?
No, I don't. It's a little bit too much of a mess going between.
It does make a mess, but
yeah,
kids love the mess.
They do.
But no, it's, it takes a special student they really do march to their own drum, and that's exactly what you have done. We are so happy that you are here today to share your message, and we want you to come back when you are working in a school district. We hope it's in Kansas. Yes. And bring your students, and we expect to see them out there performing at the Capitol.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Yep. We're going to give you a round of applause.
Thanks.
So who do we have next, Mark?
Well, I'm going to just give a little bit more.
Okay.
Because actually Taylor was one of our special guests at our in-service workshop that we just had this past week. So she did a little bit of a keynote. She played for the general opening session, and then she also had a session of her own where she just spoke. But just to talk a little bit about the ISW, that's our in-service workshop, which was just happened last week. It's our annual conference. It's a 3-day event. Of course, last year we had to do it virtually, and we were so thrilled to have it in person this year. But over the 3 days, we had about 70 different sessions for teachers to attend. Clinic sessions on music education. We had world-renowned directors coming from all over the United States to clinic our students. We had probably about 1,500 people register for the actual conference. We're the largest conference that actually takes place in Wichita because we generally host about 6,000 people every year at our conference. But that's between the participants, the students, the parents, just everybody who's in attendance there. We have vendors that come from all over the United States, exhibits their products. We also recognize the outstanding teachers and administrators that were nominated and then selected. Our Teacher of the Year was Robin Christie from Shawnee Mission Bishop Miege High School. That's the East Central District for us. Our honor administrator was Shelley Angelos, who is a school superintendent in Northwest Kansas, Brewster, Kansas. She's a school superintendent, but when they couldn't find a music teacher, she stepped in and she's teaching music. So they're maintaining their music program, but the school superintendent stepped in and did that. So we recognized her as the outstanding administrator in Kansas for this year. We also nominate and then put some members into the Hall of Fame, and we had two new Hall of Fame members this year. We have 10 different all-states groups, and so we had 1,500 students that participated in our all-state groups, and those are all pretty much by audition. We do a little bit of informal data gathering. The national average for the ACT score is 20.9. This goes back to how music sort of rewires your brain a little bit. But the national average for the ACT is 20.9. For Kansas this year, it dropped a little bit. It was 19.5. This is not really a true average because we had 10 different groups, but if you put sort of them together, the average for the students that were in the all-state ensembles was 28. That was from, the one choir was 25, but the string orchestra, their average was 31. So that just goes right along with music does help with that brain development and just being able to do some different things. Now, at this point in time, I am going to turn it over to our president-elect, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Meneman, and I teach 512 band at Marysville, and I am the KMEA president-elect. One thing that we really try to do is to assure that all of our directors succeed, and especially our new teachers. As you know, we have a huge shortage, and so we are trying to do everything that we can as far as mentoring is concerned. We have 3 chairpersons, and we've divided up our state into the western, the central, and the eastern parts of the state, and they each have their own chairperson. And then each of our districts, as Mark mentioned, we have 7 of those in our state. Each of those also has a chairperson that's helping in their local area, in their district, as far as mentorship. They hold statewide and district meetings throughout the year. They also have a really neat newsletter called the Mentoring Minute they're putting out monthly, and that's been really helpful, especially to our younger teachers who are more technology proficient and like to have that kind of newsletter at their hands. At our ISW, as Mark mentioned, the in-service workshop, we had lots of sessions for them, and we have a free breakfast for those new teachers. We also try to encourage our students. Today, as part of my chapter of Tri-M, which is an honor society for music students, was here to help serve breakfast. Hopefully you got to enjoy that. But that purpose is to recognize those outstanding students and to give them a place to help with their community and to promote music and to be honored and appreciated as strong music students. We have 30 of those chapters in Kansas, and several hundred students are involved in that program. So thank you very much for having us.
Hang on a second, because we have a question from Senator Solenthrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's the participation level in music, instrument, and voice? Has it trended up? Is it flat? Is it going down? Where you at?
I would say overall this year, enrollment throughout Kansas is probably down just a little bit due to COVID and mitigation things that we had to do last year, and kids just, not coming back to those programs. So we are working hard to get them up. As far as gender, does anybody want to speak to that? I don't. I don't know any specific data on that. I know in my own personal, I've been doing this for 22 years, and I mean, I haven't ever had more girls than boys, if that's what you're asking.
Follow up?
No, it's just basically voice or instrument. And then for those that are playing instrument, are there funding methods or instrument companies that are very readily available and fund these instruments and kids can participate?
Yeah, I think we have an organization, Kansas, it's called CAN, but tell me what the
Kansas Music Merchants.
Kansas Music Merchants. Thank you. We have lots of letters. I'm sure you do too. But we do have several great, outstanding music merchants in Kansas that do. I know I have 2 stores that call on my school personally, and they come out each week, and they do rental programs and we also, I think there's in the Kansas City area, what is that organization, the Angels? Yeah, and so they help students get instruments that can't afford them, so.
Yeah, they do. You donate them, the flute, the clarinet, they take them, and more students get
Find
them.
person and who needs it.
Know that from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here. I enjoyed visiting with some of you at the breakfast this morning and appreciated that. I shared my story that in Wichita, where I was as a child, you started band in 6th grade. I could not wait. I wasn't sure what I was going to play, but thinking maybe flute or trumpet like some of the others were mentioning. And then my parents moved to Kansas City when I was starting the 6th grade year, and I went in like, yay, and they're like, I'm sorry, you had to have started in 5th grade here. So I never got to be in band. And I made sure all 4 of my children were, and I was pleased to hear that now they don't do that anymore. Is that right? Like beginners can start later?
It would be up to the individual school district, but yeah, I think we're just trying to get every kid in our classroom, every kid, so yeah.
I'm really pleased to hear that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess on that note, are they still doing the recorder?
Oh, yes.
Like 3rd or 4th
Of course.
Come on, nothing like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a recorder, right?
Yes.
So we are still doing that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
I did mention that we do have a collegiate chapter, and at this point, I'm going to bring up the collegiate president, Drew Valasa.
Good afternoon. My name is Drew Valasa. I am currently a senior music education major at Emporia State University, and I have the privilege to serve as the NAFME Collegiate President for KMEA. And as a reminder, because there are a lot of acronyms being thrown around, NAFME stands for the National Association for Music Education. We have 26 chapters at various Kansas universities, colleges, community colleges, with approximately 2,700 students, as mentioned earlier. We have the 6th largest CNAFME chapter in the country, which I'm personally really excited and proud about. And collegiate is just kind of a place for pre-service educators, and its purpose is to afford students an opportunity for professional orientation and development while they're still in school, and to enable students to gain an understanding of the basic truths and principles that underlie the role of music in human life, the philosophy and function of the music education profession, the professional interests of members involved in the local, state, division, and national levels, the music industry's role in support of music education, the knowledge and practices of the professional music educator as facilitated through chapter activity. And when I talk about chapter activity, each university chapter will elect a representative, usually their chapter president, to serve on our sort of collegiate state board. And we maintain regular communications throughout the year in order to provide networking opportunities, attend each other's meetings. It's really cool. Music education is a very small network, and it's really nice to be able to get in early and meet other people in the field at other universities. I met so many other music education majors at various other universities through this position, and regular members do too. And then in addition to that, the biggest thing that we do each year in the fall is a workshop called ks.gov, and another acronym that stands for the Kansas Consortium of Music Teacher Education Professors and Students. And basically, sort of like KMEA has the in-service workshop, that's sort of our smaller collegiate in-service workshop that's geared towards specifically pre-service educators. We do mock interviews. We invite education professionals and college professors from across the state to come and present sessions for students at Cincinnati Music in Wichita each year. And it's always great to get to do that. So that is collegiate. I will now turn things over to Dr. John Taylor, unless there are any questions. Sorry.
Sure, we're going to ask you questions.
Okay, I understand.
Start with Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Drew, is your specialty, is it vocal?
Yes, I'm a vocal major. Yeah. So I hope to teach.
noticeable.
I hope to teach 6 through 12 choir, ideally, like mid-sized district. I like the idea of being able to teach both middle school and high school. That's pretty common.
So Drew, do you also play piano?
As much as I need to for my degree.
There we go.
That is a personal goal of mine to get better at. But yeah, I wouldn't say I can play piano, but I wouldn't say I play piano.
There we go. Other questions? Drew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, it's true that we college professors make our music majors suffer at the piano for many years, and Drew is experiencing that right now. By the way, for your entrance, Drew will be student teaching in the fall, so we're very excited about him entering the profession. I am John Taylor. And I'm the executive director for KMEA. I am Professor Emeritus from Friends University. KMEA regularly works on funding, try to find funding, ways for teachers to access funding in the schools. And of course, these acronyms are not going to be new to people sitting in this room. ESEA, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which has been around since Lyndon Baines Johnson was president, is the federal funding legislation for schools, the federal legislation, not the state legislation, of course. And that has had many forms over the years, Race to the Top and No Child Left Behind. There have been a lot of names given to that legislation. Right now, we are living under the law of ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, which is also not going to be new to this group. That legislation, the ESSA legislation, is hugely important for music teachers because it's the first time in the United States that music has been raised to the same level of other subjects that used to be called core subjects. The ESSA legislation removes the word core and uses well-rounded, which is a name I'm sure many of you have heard. All subjects that are central to learning now are called well-rounding subjects, and math, science, language arts are in that category, so is music now, which allows us to access title funds and other federal monies that would not have necessarily been available to music teachers before that. It's very important to us, and it's been a huge help as we've tried to return from whatever was happening in the schools during COVID, and it was a real mess. And by the way, teachers tell me all the time, I talk to teachers from all over the state, last year was terrible, this year is worse, trying to get students back into the schools and into the mode of learning again. So we're all hoping next year to have a normal school year with kids learning and teachers teaching and just get things going the way we did. We really appreciate this body and the legislature for bringing these title monies that are for COVID startup that came from the federal government, getting them to the local schools so that local decision makers could decide how that money would be used in their district. And because we are a well-rounded subject, now our students, our teachers can access that music for startup in music programs. And of course, as part of that, social health and mental development, all of those kinds of things, well-being in school, attendance at school, music students across the nation have the highest attendance record of any students in the school. And all of those things, being able to access that money will help our students as they transition out of this mess that created in their lives with COVID and back into the social environment and the learning environment that happens in our schools. These Title I-A and Title IV funds, thank you for getting those through for us. We also advocate all over the state for music education. It's part of our organization. We have a state advocacy chair, Kelly Nedler from Dodge City, who oversees that. And as they mentioned previously, we have 7 districts in KMEA across the state, and every district has an advocacy chair. And these people work together tirelessly throughout the year to make sure that materials are available for students and teachers and administrators and parents and decision makers to help support, to advocate for music in our schools. We have a wonderful website, and the information for this would be in the PDF that you received, called ADVOANGLE, A-D-V-O, ADVOANGLE, www.advoangle.com. We received a grant from the Country Music Association Foundation. We actually have received 2 grants in recent years. One of them was actually to beef up some of the things we're doing today as we visit the Hill. But the first one was to create this ADVOANGLE website. We received thousands and thousands of dollars from the Country Music Association for technology and and other materials to develop this website. And now our teachers can access and use it in Kansas, as well as decision makers, but it's also being accessed by music educators across the country. And then our national association, the National Association for Music Education, also has some great advocacy materials on their website as well. And then finally, we're celebrating right now Music in Our Schools Month. It's one of the reasons why we come to see you in March. MIOSM, Music in Our Schools Month, is a national celebration across our country, a declared national celebration of music learning in our schools. And as we have done for years now, the governor, this year Governor Kelly, signed a proclamation making March Music in Our Schools Month in the state of Kansas. And we shared that proclamation with our members at the convention that we just held. KMEA has a MIOSM chairperson, Patricia Ahern from McPherson, oversees that for us. Our national organization puts together curriculum and music and materials, all those kinds of things for our teachers to use in the schools in March across the country. And actually at certain points during the month of March, students in schools all across the country will be playing and singing exactly the same music at exactly the same time. And we've actually, Disney Corporation, they're not doing it this year, but we believe it's going to start back up, has actually broadcast that, showing schools all across the country performing the same music in our schools in a celebration of music in our schools. That's all I have to share. So, Madam Chair, if there are any questions.
Committee, what questions do you have? I am not seeing any.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much for letting us be here today.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to finish up with a couple more points. One of the initiatives that we started last year, which sort of came to fruition this year, is we had a small schools initiative sort of started, because sometimes the students in 1, 2A schools don't maybe get the opportunities as some of our 5, 6A schools. So there's more and more that we're starting to do as far as for supporting those teachers that are in the 1, 2A schools, or those by supporting their teachers, we're supporting their students. So this year we did have different sessions involving, Kansas smaller or the rural schools. We also started up this year, it's not an all-state group, but it was a chance for 1, 2A teachers to nominate their students to be involved with a larger group. I think the group ended up being about 70, 75 members, but they could come together at our in-service workshop, and they would be playing and sort of, with instrumentation that they've never been able to do in their own districts. If there's just a handful of people in their high school band in their community, then to be able to come to the in-service workshop and play with 60, 70, 80 other people, that was just seen as a tremendous opportunity for those students who maybe would not have gotten that opportunity otherwise. So that's something that we're hopefully going to be able to continue with. So again, that's our small schools initiative with the 1, 2A more size schools. The final thing is just, again, to thank you for letting us be here today. We thank you for your support for music education in Kansas. We do feel that it is important that we keep music education in public schools because it's teaching. It's teaching science, math, foreign language, history, physical education, while demanding research by developing insight and enhances both spatial reasoning and develops organization. Through music, we become a well-rounded human who recognizes beauty, understands emotion, and can collaborate in this world. Every child has access to a quality music education program, and that's what we're hoping, is that every child has access to a quality music education program from K-12, including weekly general music for all children K through 5. We just hope that still, again, music curriculums are there that support the needs of a diverse student population, including music from multiple cultures with diverse composers and artists, and be free of any cultural bias. So again, that's just sort of where we're at. That's our sort of annual report, I guess, for you. But again, mainly we just thank you for hearing us today. So if there's...
We're very happy to hear from you today. I think Senator Solentrop has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What are the economic opportunities for musicians, voice or instrument, beyond the teaching of music and so forth? And are they greater today than they were a decade or two ago? Are there more people having careers in music other than teaching that
Okay, okay. Well, one of the things, of course, my students, which I don't quite understand, is TikTok, because there's all sorts of TikTok artists. So they are doing a lot with that as far as a venue for getting their voice heard. Now, economically, I know that there's some people who claim that they make money off of TikTok. I have no idea how that works, but there's also people that broadcast, some things that they've done on YouTube, and it's the same kind of thing. There are some, I guess if you have so many followers or if you get, sponsors for some of those programs. Now, as far as the traditional route, as far as musicians or venues, I'm more versed in the, teaching profession, but I think there's probably just as many starving artists out there as there have always been, ones who want to make it big. It was so gratifying to see, like Broadway open up back in New York, getting things live and in person. And I know there's still probably just as many students that are wanting to do that with the rest of their life. So I don't know whether there's more opportunities, but I guess with just the way the technology's gone, I think there probably is more opportunity with the technology that's available today. And we do have some people that are working on technical standards for music education, because we've done more of the performance standards in education. But Bill Thomas in Shawnee Mission, I know he's sort of piloting some programs as far as music technology. And and then putting those in place. There are some national standards, but we don't necessarily have the Kansas standards yet. And we've been talking with ks.gov a little bit about that as well, so technical.
Senator Gossage.
Well, let's not forget Twitch. I'm just kidding. No, I have a son who makes a living off of Twitch, so that's what I'm saying. No, I have a son who's a worship pastor who loved music throughout school and plays several instruments, and his brother-in-law makes a very good living creating music for competitive cheerleading. They have to have original music for that. So there are a lot of avenues now for students who love music and went on to become music majors or did not. Yeah. Thank you again for being here today.
If you had a chance to hear the orchestra that played, they did a phenomenal arrangement of Star Spangled Banner, which was his composition. But it had been a class project that he gave different students, different stanzas to sort of improvise something on the Star Spangled Banner. And then what he did is he put it all together. And so that was his original composition. And they're going to be going to New Orleans after spring break on a trip. And they're going to be actually playing that for an NBA basketball game, the Star Spangled Banner. So that's cool. I asked him whether it was going to be televised. He said he'd find out, so that'd be cool.
Yes, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more quick family anecdote. The son that's a worship pastor, in his senior year at a very small high school, DeSoto High School, the music teacher said, okay, so the seniors normally sing a song at graduation. Here's a list of some you guys can pick from. And they were all going, don't like any. And my son said, how about if I just write one? She goes, you're going to have to write soprano, alto, tenor, bass. He said, okay. And they sang that song, and he later recorded it. And the only reason I bring this up is to, yes, brag on my son, but the other reason is to say, like, giving that opportunity for the teachers to say, work on your own rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, work on your rendition of our school song, whatever that may be. I think that's terrific to let kids not just learn the notes, but have an opportunity to write their own songs, be creative with it. I applaud music. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for enriching our meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You may.
So I'm glad I had 2 pages here because they can be listening to this, and I don't know for sure if they are involved right now because there's 6th graders in music at their school or not. But if you would stand up. So we have Vivian, right there. And we have Layla, and Vivian attends Resurrection School in Kansas City, Kansas, and Layla is at St. Agnes in Roland Park. So they're here as pages, and they're having a great time. One of them this is her first time at the Capitol. So girls, glad to hear it.
Wonderful. Okay, we are going to very much change direction, and we're going to continue with our foster care report card. And so first up, we do have Mike Fonfert. That's not right, is it? Did I say that right? That's what I thought. For some reason, we keep misspelling it on the agenda.
It's all right.
Fonfert, Campaign Director for Kansas Appleseed Center for Law and Justice. So we do have your presentation that was submitted to us. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about that foster care report card?
Thank you, Chair Baumgardner and members of the committee. I am Mike Fonkert, Campaign Director with Kansas Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, and happy to be here on such a beautiful day and such a positive meeting to talk about another subject that we feel is moving in a positive direction. So here to talk about the foster care report card, which I know you all are familiar. It was an executive order, then codified into statute last year. And there's 10 elements that are specifically listed for data tracking for the report card. Kansas Appleseed was instrumental in bringing this about, and the entire purpose of this is to provide a resource for our lawmakers to really be able to see what's happening with our foster care kids in terms of academic success. We were not very satisfied with the first version of the report, but this is a dramatic improvement. And so we're very happy to see that we have made significant progress in turning this into the report that we intended it to be. Just briefly, background, this was based on the model out of Indiana. And, you know, like I said, it's really here so that you all have a one-stop shop in terms of the most important data elements you can think of with regards to our foster care population. So I will briefly walk through the elements, and there will emerge a very consistent theme as we work through here. So element one is graduation rates. We were very happy to see the explanations at the beginning of the report that list how the calculations were made and how they figured out the cohorts for different data points. One thing you will absolutely see throughout is racial disparities. And so element one, you can see that black foster care students only graduate at a rate of 53.2%. The disparity rate, however, is actually a little smaller for foster care than for the state as a whole, where the state as a whole, white students outperform the all-student rate, 90.3 to 88.1%. But amongst kids in foster care, white students actually underperform the overall rate, 59.8% versus 61.2. But throughout the report, racial disparities is something that we would encourage you to really keep track of and pay attention to. Element two, grade promotion. That was an element that in the first version of the report we were not very satisfied with. This is updated, and so we have that breakdown by grade for promotion, and you can see by grade level how our foster care kids are doing in terms of moving on to the next grade level. Elements 3 and 4, we see relatively limited racial disparities. And so that is an interesting note. And again, compared to the first version, which did not contain this data point, this is a dramatic improvement. Element 5 is the state assessment. Let me stop here just a second, make sure I haven't missed. Element 5, state assessment. The data here is very valuable, but we would recommend that the report includes the benchmark of the performance of the overall student population as a comparison point. And that is really one thing that's consistent throughout the report as a missing element that I think will help us get to, I don't want to say a perfect report, but a nearly perfect, in terms of what the vision for this was. And so elements 6 and 7, which preschool at risk and mental health interventions, there do appear to be disparities here again. And again, we recommend comparing these numbers to the overall population so that we can have that element to understand. Understanding what's happening in the foster care system is important, but it's less meaningful when we don't know how that compares to the overall population. Element 8 is another one that we're paying attention to, and that is because element 8 is stated as the total number of students in foster care enrolled in a school district or non-public school, and the disaggregated number and percentage of students in foster care enrolled in school districts and accredited non-public schools. Element 8 does not appear to us to show a breakdown for public versus non-public schools, and so we'd recommend that be included as well. On the whole, we have made a dramatic improvement in this report, and very happy to be able to stand up here and thank KSDE and DCF for the work they've done to improve this report, and look forward to working with the members of this committee and the members of those agencies to implement these recommendations as well, so that next year when we're looking at that report, we don't have anything to come talk about that's missing, and that would be really great. And then I think we will have realized the tool that we are trying to create for you all to make good policy as it relates to educational policy for our foster care youth. So with that, much improvement, some improvement left to do, but we really like the trajectory this report is on, and hope that you all will delve deeply into it, not only this year, but in subsequent years, to consider the data that is presented. And with that, I will happily stand for questions.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and we'll have Scott Hendricks come up here. He's the Director of Permanency for DCF, so he is going to make his presentation, and then we'll ask questions. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm presuming would you like me to go through my presentation again?
I'd like you to highlight a few of the things.
Sure.
If you could, in particular, talk about the comparison with regard to, like the graduation rates and the grade promotion and the state assessment, that comparison to the general population. Are you able to address that?
I can do that somewhat. Okay. This is, again, we provide the information to KSDE, and they compile the data. So they might be more versed in that, but I'll be glad to answer any questions about that.
Well, I guess one of the things I'm curious about is just talking about graduation rates. It was addressed by Mr. Fonkert that the racial disparities of Black foster kids only graduate at the rate of 53%, whereas the white foster care kids are graduating at a 61.2%. I guess that disparity from a racial standpoint is a concern, particularly because we know there's a disparity of Black children being in foster care. Do you know what that breakout is right now in foster care, as far as what is the disparity reducing, or is it increasing over time?
I do not have the specific number with me. Obviously, that's something we can provide to you. I do know that is a focus, something we are spotlighting on. I don't want to say for certain, but it's my belief right now that it is reducing because of the efforts we're putting into this. Okay. And the awareness around it.
Seeing a head shake behind you, and I realize you're looking at me, which is fine. But I think that's one of those things that I think as we go through the different elements, we need to determine, I think it's important for us to share, this is what's happening in the total student population.
Right.
So where we are from that ethnic and racial background, where we are with our foster kids, and what is the trend, if it's going up or down, so that we can see that comparison. So I think if you're able to provide that, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay? One thing that I see as a recommendation, and I don't know if have you seen the testimony that Mr. Fonkert turned in?
I do not have it with me right now, no.
Okay. One of the things that he is suggesting is that we start tracking the number of students that had to change a school district when they went into foster care. How many changed school districts while they were in foster care, and how many times they had to move while they were in foster care. And I know that we've worked, DCF has worked to reduce the number of movements in foster care. But I think the other thing that perhaps wasn't included by Mr. Fonkert's testimony is where are we as far as the duration of foster care? Because it used to be that kids would be in foster care 4 or 5 years. That was not uncommon. And there's been an effort, a marked effort by DCF to reduce the amount of time that a child is in foster care, as well as the number of times the child is moved around. Because moving around used to be pretty dramatic numbers as how many times on average a foster child would move. So is that something that you feel next year when the report is submitted to the legislature that that information could be included? And I recognize that's a big ask, because different times when I've tried to find out about, okay, so how many kids do we have in this school district and so forth, that's been really difficult for DCF to be able to address. They don't always necessarily know what school districts and what schools kids are in. So has that tracking improved?
Yes. We developed action plans last year with our case management providers, and part of those include capturing data, which reports the number of moves and school changes. So we are collecting that information now, and it is something that we could include in this report going forward.
Okay, so you said you started that this last year. How long do you think that's been in place? Are we at a year yet?
We are very close, if not.
Okay. So is it possible for you to even give us an update on like the last 8 or 10 months, where we are on that?
Absolutely.
Or is that going to be inaccurate because not all school districts were meeting face-to-face?
I think that is very possible. I can check with our team to see where we're at number-wise and reporting,
Okay.
and then get back with you, though.
If you could even just report from what happened at the start of this school year in August to where we are, and it could be just first semester, if that's easier.
Sure.
Just how many kids do we have in our schools? How many moves have they made? How many of them had to move out of their school district? And I will tell you, that's one of the things that we hear repeatedly from foster parents and from school counselors is that being moved out of that home-based school district, not only to perhaps another school within the district or someplace dramatically different from where they were going to school. So a 2 or 3 hour drive from where they were going to school. But if you could give us that information from just the fall, and I realize it doesn't fit in the context of this, but I think that would be helpful. The other thing is, so help us identify, if they're not in accredited public schools, where else are they?
Private schools,
So those would be accredited private schools?
yes.
Okay. What about the non-accredited schools? Because that's not going to be, homeschoolers are considered to be in non-accredited schools. So where would it be that they would attend if it was non-accredited?
If I'm understanding you correctly, homeschooling is permitted? in terms of where they would be if they're not in an accredited school, I mean, I think that's something we need to look into,
Okay.
for sure.
So if you could give us, with that follow-up information, if you could give us that additional information about how many kids we have in public schools, in elementary, middle, and high schools, and then how many are attending either private or non-accredited.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may, Chair, I would like to add, part of our AFGARs, which is the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System, numbers that we essentially report on up to federal levels. Starting in October, we are requiring more information surrounding education be reported by our case management providers. Previously, it was just a student's ID number and highest grade level completed. Going forward, starting in October of this year, it will include students not enrolled, which might help capture some of that data. Students not school age, students in elementary schools, secondary schools, post-secondary, and college. So again, I think that it shows the spotlight is being shown on education a little more. So we're taking further steps to really collect quality data and take dives into that to see how we can improve processes and policies.
Okay. The other question that I have, because you do give us data with regard to state assessments, and they are quite low. But my question is, do you compare what their state assessment score was prior to going into foster care?
Direct answer, Chair, is no, not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. Committee, what questions do you have? Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking at your testimony, and you and the part that's some highlights from the second annual report. I'm just trying to understand it. You said the percentage of students experience foster care graduate with a diploma in 4 years is 26.9 points lower than the percentage of all students in Kansas. And then it says 61.2 in foster care compared to 88.1 of all. But then you said this is an increase from the last report in which the rate was nearly 28 points lower. Are you saying that the year before in your report that the foster care graduation rate was 30, was it in the 40 or 50? Yeah, 33%. You said 28 points lower, so I'm lower than the 61.2? It's on your page 3.
Right, I'm reading it. I'm revisiting this. Let me clarify that. It could be a typo, honestly.
Okay.
But I know there was improvement in this area.
That's dramatic, I just.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Well, I think it's comparing the difference. In the first sentence, it says the diploma in 4 years is 26 points lower than the percentage. And then last year, that percentage was 28 points different. So it went from 28 points to 26.9. So it showed some improvement.
Oh, okay, so that 28 is to the 26.9, not.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It took me a.
All right. It's hard to read it
Yeah.
in that way.
Right. I
Can
understand.
you go back and double check that?
Yes.
Yes, Senator Sykes.
Thank you for being here. And my question I have too, so the educational stability for children in foster care work group, do you present any of those, or are those meeting minutes or anything available for us?
I can verify and let you know. I will check, I will submit them to our legislative personnel and they can give them to you.
Okay, and that's my question. I know I've talked to several foster parents and just trying to make sure that our foster kids are receiving the education. And one, I know I've asked this question here before, but just with IEPs and things like that, where the parent has to sign off instead of a case manager. And if there's things that either we have to do legislatively, or if it's just a regulation or rule change that you could make so that we're making sure those kids are receiving the services that they need without having to put them in, you know, this was a situation where there was no contact with the biological family, but that he needed IEP for actually gifted services, but was unable to get those because he had to have the form signed by the parent, and then the parent knew what part of the state. And so if there's ways that there's discussion in that work group that we could know whether it's a change that we need to make legislatively, I would actually greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm glad you mentioned this. I believe you asked this when I was up last time, and I did follow up on this. And I was certain of it, but I did not state it. But that's a federal law. So we're very limited, and we have no policy essentially surrounding it because it is indeed a federal law. And we have done some follow-up with KSDE, and we've got the federal citation and then the applicable Kansas statutes around parents and acting as a parent, and then the whole educational advocate piece as well. So
I'm not seeing any other questions. One last ask of Mr. Fonkert. Is there anything in addition that you think, other than what you have cited in your testimony, that needs to be included in the report card for next year?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, thanks to you for highlighting my testimony even a little more thoroughly than I did. I think the most important thing is what you highlighted there in our conclusion of the testimony that we presented to you, the inclusion of the number of kids that changed school districts, changed districts, you know, entering care, during care, and then having those disaggregated by race and ethnicity. I think that'll be a very informative data point. And then also you mentioned state assessments. We did also recommend, if possible, that those, like the promotion rates, be broken down by grade level to allow a little more in-depth. And then if I might, on the racial disparity question, our policy analyst did put together some information. And so if you'll allow me just one brief moment, the FY 2021 facts report is where these numbers come from. So at the end of fiscal year 2021, 1,367 of the 6,845, which is 20% of kids in care, were African American. That the population estimate for the number of African-American children in Kansas under the age of 18 is 73,542. This means that 18.6 out of every 1,000 African-American children in Kansas were in foster care. At the end of FY 2021, 5,348 of the 6,845 kids in care were white. That's 78.1%. The population estimate of white children in Kansas under 18 is 618,084, which means that an estimated 8.7 out of every 1,000 white children was in foster care in 2021. Using these numbers, we can estimate that an African-American child in Kansas was 114% more likely than a white child and 92% more likely than the average child in Kansas to be in foster care in 2021. We work with the Strengthen Families Rebuild Hope Coalition, and when compared to the first version of the report that group puts out, these numbers have actually increased significantly.
So my ask of you would be that you would provide that data that you just shared, make sure that that gets to our assistant so that it can then be sent on to us. And the same, if you could provide that, that would be wonderful. Okay? Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any other questions. I do appreciate this was an enlightening committee meeting, and we will see you tomorrow. Committee meeting is adjourned.